afternoon classes, 4:30 or 6:15 classes, which I teach. These are people often who are coming from the office. They're coming from work, right? Work, probably screen, especially these days. And they show up and they're a little bit frazzled. And so I feel like, okay, I got to teach a yoga class. It's got to be a good vinyasa class, which, yeah. But I look at a bigger picture of, I have the privilege of taking this person who's probably a little bit, jittery, and I get to detune them and soften them so that when they go to their family, they have a better experience with their family because they've had a better experience with themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I love doing what I do.
Hi guys, this podcast explores the importance of our connection, well-being and mental health. To reason with someone is to motivate them to do or accept topics, ideas and issues through discussion and having conversations. This podcast is for those that want to raise their awareness, change their perspective or just have a good time. My vision is to help people find reason to live, to grow and to understand. I do that through this podcast as well as counselling individuals that want to help themselves.
No, he needs to know.
I just think he's gonna talk and it's gonna make a lot of sense.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
One man, one podcast. 3, 2, 1.
Reason With Me podcast, episode 14. Welcome back to the podcast. I would like to start by introducing today the guest that I'm having. His name is Troy. Troy wandered into a yoga class at the gym when a friend recommended it for surfing and snowboarding, which his life revolves around. Troy felt incredibly high as he floated out, and that's when he realized he was hooked. In 2008, he decided to teach and reconnected with an old family friend who became his teacher, Baron Baptiste. Troy trained and travelled and mentored with him for 3 years while teaching and serving as the director of teachers for his Boston studios in the US before coming to Australia in 2010 after having met Duncan Peake. Duncan Peake is the founder of Powerliving Australia. Since then, Troy has taught at Powerliving with the focus always staying the same. Troy likes to keep people moving, breathing and feeling better. Troy teaches with an emphasis on flow and creating art with the canvas that is the body, and he always aims to have his class accessible to anybody. Troy, thanks so much for coming. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
I'm super keen to talk about this subject and talk to you, but let's crack straight in. I guess I want to know, who the hell are you and what do you do?
Who the hell am I and what do I do? Okay, well, I'll try to give the 1 minute version. So my name's Troy Abraham. I'm originally from California. Started practicing yoga about 15 years as on the recommendation of a friend who said, dude, you got to try it sick for surfing and snowboarding. I was an avid snowboarder and surfer. Went into my first class and literally just left feeling high. So that spawned a love of the practice. For the first few years, it was a lot of home practice. One day a week class. I didn't really know about styles, etc. When I was 25, I guess after kind of like a quarter life crisis, you could call it, decided I was sick of doing what I was doing, and the opportunity of teaching presented itself, and I thought, yeah, I could do this. Had an epiphany, found my teacher, and basically the next 3 years was traveling, mentoring with him, teaching. His name is Baron Baptiste. He's a teacher in the US. I ran his studios in Boston in 2009, 10, I guess it would have been. And then late 2010, moved to Australia, and I've been here ever since, off and on, mostly working for Powerliving and a couple other studios. But yeah, it kind of brings us up to speed, I guess. Yeah, what do I do? Teach yoga, I suppose, but really what I see it as is, I get the fortune of having a collective group of people and their captive audience for an hour with no phones, with nobody bothering them. So it's pretty cool that there's kind of a bit of, I guess, intrinsic and implicit energy work that gets done, and breath work. I really like getting people together, breathing them and bringing them into a flow state and a meditative place. So that's short version.
No, I like that. I think it gives me a pretty good idea. So how many years would that be in total then you've been doing yoga?
I've been practicing for 15 years. I've been teaching for 12 years.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I like that already like what you said is sort of bring people together and it's sort of holding the space for people for the most part. And I think what I really like about, I've been to a few of your classes, Troy. I really like, you make it really fun. You make it like an
Yeah.
enjoyable space. Like you guys are here with me for an hour. Let's have a good time. And I really like that as well.
Yeah, I think the example I always try to, I say it sometimes, and I like to remind people is that yoga is a discipline, and there's work definitely. Like it takes practice. But what I've seen is that a lot of people can get a bias towards being super strict and super hard on themselves, and to a degree it's good. But I just feel like there's enough of that in the world. So I feel like my role, I'm a pretty mellow, relaxed person, and I work here in Sydney, and we have a lot of people who are very go and stressed. So I feel like my role is partially just to chill people out, and so I want to have a quality of levity. I want people to have a joy about the work they're doing, and this is kind of a thing that kept me in yoga versus I don't know, gym work or something like that. Like I like going to the gym occasionally, but the thing about gym is a lot of people who they're stressed, and they go to the gym, and it's like I'm going to do something because I know it's good for me, but I'm going to disconnect from it. It's just like, oh, this sucks, but I got to do it. And then afterwards, like, oh, I'm so sore, I went to the gym, but I feel good because I did something. But I thought, why does it have to be either or? I like an and mentality, because if you work hard in yoga, you'll get benefits, but you can also enjoy, the working part. You can enjoy the noticing where you're not flexible, where you're not strong, and the whole journey. So that's what I aim to facilitate is, I'm glad you feel that, because that's what I want.
That's the point. Yeah. Cool. So I guess Troy, obviously you've been doing it for a really long time, and like you said, you get a lot out of holding that space for people and bringing people into breath together in unison. And I guess, yeah, doing that for so many years and I guess holding that energy for so many people. Where do you, I guess, pull your strength from in order to do the work that you do and be able to continue to do that and hold yourself in that day in and day out and that practice and that lifestyle?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely varied over the years. I think when I started, I was just had so much energy, and I was just so excited that I was just stoked to share and just running around and sharing as much as I could. Later on, what it is just it's coming back to my own practice and coming back to making sure that I'm doing the work. Much more in the meditative world, it's much more mind work now. I as a teacher personally, I'm not the teacher that goes into getting everybody into super flexy positions. I think that flexibility is great, mobility is better. And the difference being that, if you can actively reach your arm behind you to grab something versus having somebody else take it, that's what I want. I think people get lost in kind of the achievement of one thing, and they get a one-track mind. So for me, I like to practice enough. I do some strength and mobility work as well, intermingled with my classes. But the meditative aspect, meditation has really brought a peace of mind. And it's, if I have a day where when I miss it, I wish I could say these days just been so much happening, but a regular meditation is what keeps me grounded. And the days that I miss it, I definitely feel when I'm a little bit scattered, and it's just coming back and reminding myself that, okay, close my eyes, 10 deep breaths. And it's amazing how just closing your eyes, shutting everything down for 10 deep breaths can be enough. Obviously there's more specific practices, but what I like to try to offer people is simplicity, because there's deeper practices in yoga, and when people do one-on-one work and stuff, happy to go through that with them. But what I find is people get overwhelmed, and myself, it happened too. You get overwhelmed with a complexity because saying I want to go run 5K every day from zero is not really an attainable goal, versus saying I just want to try running, run up and down the street, and then you start running up the next street. Anyway, yes, with relation to how I do it, I do that. I make sure I'm doing simple practices, but I also feel like as a teacher, what I aim to do is, instead of me feel like I have to hold the space and I have to do all this big stuff with my students, if I can do my best job about just me kind of getting in the way or out of the way and letting the class flow through me, it's less, I guess, perceived effort on my part, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely similar to how I run groups in group therapy is if I can sit back and just watch process sort of happen and let people sort of be in their own space, that's where I see the most results. And I'm happy to do that. I love it when that happens, and it happens so beautifully. Yeah.
Also, I think the thing about that as well, sorry to interrupt you, but this is the thing that I find the most important about that method of delivery is that if I show up and I'm like, hey Jackson, let's do a class, and I go and I critique and I play with and I move all the different pieces, and I am the one that I give you the practice and I do that for you, you leave thinking like, oh, Troy was a good teacher and Troy got me to do this and Troy did this for me and win Troy's class, and so you get addicted to that. And a lot of teachers, it just happens naturally. But what I want to do is I want to feel like I can provide the space, and I want you to leave feeling like you saying, wow, I got this far in my practice, I was able to do this, because then you don't need me. The idea is I don't want to build an addiction. I want there to be I want there to be a quality that you feel that you have unearthed something within yourself. So that's that one point I want to
mention. Yeah. So yeah, if people haven't figured it out by now, we're talking about yoga, and yeah, that's just that yoga in a sense is means so many different things to so many people, and especially in our Western societies, and I guess definitely a bunch of the studios that are open now, and I guess it's all whatever the facilitator brings and makes it and holds that space, like you're saying. And I think, yeah, pinpointing you, Troy, because I love the way that you hold it, and you already, I don't get to ask you these questions while I'm in your practice, like, hey Troy, are you doing this because it's about holding space, so I get to sort of pick apart some of these things, and had a pretty good idea based off, I guess, the energy that you have, which is cool. And I guess you're answering them for me, which I find awesome. So I guess I want you to reason with me, Troy, and talk to me through like the importance of yoga when we're looking at connection, mental health, and well-being. And what that means.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think a lot of people, yoga it's a very broad definition, and there's that many different styles of yoga, and people have kind of different views of what it is. But I think initially what happens is people want a physical change, or they're feeling a little bit down, in life, whatever. They come to yoga studio, you get the immediate benefits of the physical, you get the endorphins, you get all the good things of any kind of exercise. But you stay, or you come back because you start to feel something different that's kind of unquantifiable. There's, if I can do my job right as a teacher, I can facilitate a space for you to have an experience of flow. Like I did a lot of research like years ago in the psychology of flow and flow states, right? And for lack of the lengthy explanation about it, it's essentially when people are completely focused in the moment. And the buzzword that gets thrown around is presence. The power of now, Eckhart Tolle's book. Being present, being present, being present. We talk about being present, being present, being present, but we don't really necessarily know what it means on a feeling level. We get very cerebral about it. So with mental health, what happens is, let's say somebody has a busy mind, or they're struggling in their mind, right? That person sitting to meditate, it's not necessarily going to be best practice just yet, because they're just going to sit and ruminate essentially on all the stuff that's going around in their mind, right? Whereas you get somebody to move, and what happens is it releases and kind of cleanses some of the potential energy that's stuck there. Then they can go and sit. And in those times, like it doesn't have to be that do this so that you can experience it. I have meditative experiences during my practice, but I find that if I can simply orchestrate a space where students can feel connected to their body, their breath, and they're fully focused. It's a principle, not of this, like, dhyana is the meditation term in the Yoga Sutras, but dharana is focused concentration. And it's a little bit skewed in this example, but if people can have a focus on, something simple as aligning the body into a certain place, and they're wholly focused on that one thing, it breeds a sense of, in a world where, like, I've got my phone, and if I wanted to open it up, I have however many apps and however many messaging services, and I can go on to, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And it's just more, they say more content is created every minute than, was available for the last 2,000 years. So we're very distracted. We don't have the ability to focus. And with, there's obviously a lot more that goes into it, but I feel that the ability to focus is something that's waning in society. And if we can have people focusing, or they can have an experience of themselves focusing, I think it puts people into a better mental state. I think it brings a bit of positivity. They feel connected. It's when you go out in nature and you don't have cell phone service, and you feel the ground and you feel the sun, and you're actually feeling all these things that we're usually detuned from. It stimulates a total awesome shift in the mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right in that. And I think the more connected we are with ourselves, the more our relationships are going to flourish, and the more we're going to actually notice that we interact better with people when I'm more grounded and I'm more connected with self. And I think
that point gets thrown around a lot. Coaching is a big industry now, right? And some of it, like rightfully so, this, obviously everything has caveats, yoga as well. But I've had students over the years, when right now we're doing this interview in a time of crisis, right? Sort of. The world is in its unideal state, let's say.
Sure.
But people would say, what's the point of doing all this movement and, and focusing on me, when there's, people suffering and starving out there? And it's an interesting question. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Wayne Dyer, but he was always, one of the people that I remember him saying this, and it was probably somebody before him, but they said, no matter how much you starve yourself, it won't feed one person. And no matter how much you worry, it won't alleviate anybody else's pain. And it's exactly what you said, is a lot of people are reaching for external gratification, love, etc. And there's not the motive to do the internal work, because if you want to be powerful in the world, you need to be connected to yourself. And this is why yoga, physical, mental, the energetic, spiritual, however you want to quantify the health side of it, I think it's beautiful. And I think that people definitely see results, and that's why they keep coming back, because it's like a retuning and a reminding when we get overwhelmed, that I feel like, okay, I'm connected. Now I can go and do my life. For example, afternoon classes, 4:30 or 6:15 classes, which I teach. These are people often who are coming from the office. They're coming from work, right? Work, probably screen, especially these days. And they show up and they're a little bit frazzled. And so I feel like, okay, I got to teach a yoga class. It's got to be a good vinyasa class, which, yeah. But I look at the bigger picture of, I have the privilege of taking this person who's probably a little bit, jittery, and I get to detune them and soften them so that when they go to their family, they have a better experience with their family, because they've had a better experience with themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I love doing what I do.
That's so true. I mean, I was doing yoga probably like 5-6 years ago, and it probably wasn't as popular as it's become now, and probably still pretty popular back then. But people were like, oh, because I stopped going to the gym. I was just doing yoga, and people were like, oh, that's good exercise. It's still so great for your body. And I said, the physical aspect of yoga is a bonus. Like, that's for me, yoga is not about the physical component or what that might do or change for my physical appearance. I go in there to be with me, and I go in there and to ground. I go in there to alleviate whatever's going in and try and leave whatever's on the outside door, and bring in and just be connected with myself, and the emotional resilience that builds for me each time I go into practice. Like, that's what I get from yoga. And that's why I think it's so important when and having people talk like yourself on this sort of platform, where we can say, like, yoga is about connecting with yourself and trying to have a different way of being with that well-being.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I think, the thing that's valid to acknowledge there too, like, if I ask you the question, was that what initially brought you to the practice, or was that kind of, you noticed that and then that's what kept you coming back to the practice?
Yeah, I think I don't know if you know Pune. She teaches at Power Living. She was teaching at Fitness First, and I was going to the gym, and it was just a Sunday afternoon class, and I went in going, oh, this will be a good thing to do. I'll stretch out my body, and left going, where can I get more of this? Where has this been my whole life? Because I left stretched out. Sure, my muscles were like, oh, cool, a bit more relaxed. But then I was like, your brain's relaxed.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Like, my first class was in a gym as well. I was going back to school, so I moved in with my dad, and they had a family gym membership. And gym was always like, in high school and stuff, I did it for sport. Don't really want to go to the gym. But a friend literally said, dude, try yoga. And this is something, because I trained a lot of the teachers many, many years ago that were teaching at Fitness First. And they kind of go, oh yeah, gym yoga. And I go, no, you don't get it. Like, you don't get the opportunity you have, especially in a gym, because if you've walked into my yoga studio, right? And you are interested in taking a class, you already have an interest in the practice. You already have a buy-in, which is cool. But in the gym, that's why gym, corporate, these forms are the places where you can have huge value, because these are people who otherwise wouldn't go into a yoga studio, and they might not have, like you said, I'm going to go stretch out. And it's not that there's nothing negative from it, but you see like, oh, yoga, my friends, when I started teaching, they're like, oh, so you're teaching yoga now? I go, yeah. And like, but you're smart, right? Like, you've studied and you're smart. And I go, teaching yoga, and it's not a judgment, but it's a judgment. And I was just kind of like, yeah, like, it's all good. But once you get it, and the point of that is, people who are teaching at a gym have a huge opportunity. I think people who are teaching non-yogis have a huge opportunity
Definitely.
to spark the journey.
Definitely. Absolutely. I think that, there's been so many more people, definitely in my life, that have started based on, the feedback that they're getting or the experience that they're getting with the people that they know that are doing it, and be like, okay, I want what he's having. I want little bit of that. And I think that's just such a power, the power of, I guess, somatic therapy and alternative therapies, where we can start to realize how disconnected we are from the body and the mind. And we talk a lot about that on this podcast, about how disconnected we are within society with our mind and our body.
Totally.
And yoga is such a beautiful place for that reconnection, and actually realizing, this isn't a detached from my body. It actually is part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a while, and I imagine along the way there's been people with different mental health concerns potentially coming in and through, or just more noticeable stress, or just a bit out of whack or whatever in their mind, not just their body or whatever. Do you see some of your students, like, the transition in their mental health, maybe more specifically, like some people with like a trauma experience, and so I look a lot into trauma informed therapy and what that can bring. Do you have examples, or have you found that with some of your students?
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at it like this. I think everybody exudes a certain energetic signature, right? And I'm like, I love people. I'm very social. I always try to be warm and welcoming. That's what I aim to do, because I feel like there's a lot of people who are traveling through the world, and not even necessarily with acute trauma, but a fear of being seen or showing up, or just being themselves. And I feel like those people, if they come in, and it's it's little things, like the practice is great, but it's little things like, if you're leaving, I'm like, oh, Jackson, how are you feeling? What's going on with your shoulder? I noticed this, and it's like, oh, I was noticed. It can shift, and this is the thing I tell teachers, is that you can have huge impacts with small, I don't know, movements or assists and things like that. I've seen people who've come in and they've been very, very down. Yoga attracts a lot of people who will come from addictions, for example.
Yeah.
I think about 10, 15 years ago, it was really an interesting thing to see that there was a lot of ex-heroin addicts, or a lot of drug addicts, alcoholics and such, that would come and they would get into yoga, and it was a positive outlet for them, but then they'd get addicted to the yoga. So it was it was healthy, but it was an unhealthy motive. But even them, you see time that it changes that. We've had people who have come, with, body image, disorders, or just mental patterning, and through yoga, it's like, this is the place they need. And they've sent us messages after a year or two, just saying, look, you guys have no idea how beneficial you've been. So that's amazing. I think I did a post a while back, after I'd heard of a friend who had taken his life, and it was just saying to people, like, you never know what people are going through. So if you have friends that you're not sure, ask, reach out. And from that, I got a lot of personal messages to me privately, just saying, you don't know how instrumental you've been in keeping me sane in life. Like, you're one of two people that have helped. And it's not an ego-based thing, but it's an honor-based thing, where I just go, wow, we never know that somebody's hanging on based on just have that one class 3-4 times a week. And when people send those kind of messages, it's really gratifying. It makes the work feel richer, I suppose. And
Definitely.
seeing that people have used it to, I don't know, I mean, trauma is an interesting one. We introduce, so I teach and I work a lot with hands-on assists, not right now because we can't touch anybody, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But about a year ago, we introduced the peg, we call it. So we put, if you don't want to be touched, put clothing peg on the mat. And it's an interesting thing, on a personal level. I think there's a lot of people that have fear of touch based on, most of the belief systems are patterned from early childhood, right?
Yeah, sure.
And people have had an issue. It could be a micro or macro trauma. It's whatever it is around touch. And it's kind of, it's an interesting thing, because I feel like rather than just leaving people alone, it's sort of just saying, yeah, touch is bad, and you have a belief that touch is bad. We probably should never touch you, and we don't want to go there. Versus having, training yourself to have a calm energy, a smooth, a sensitive sense of touch, a compassionate sense of touch, where you can actually reintroduce people to what touch can be like. I've had that experience with some students too. I think in my career, I don't know how many thousands of people have come in the doors, probably tens of thousands of people I've seen. And I've had two people who were very, very anti, like, no, I don't want to be touched. And one of them comes to mind. It was early in my career, and I could feel her energy, every time I'd walk through the room, just, checking out, there's 70 people in the room, but she'd kind of look, and there was this kind of energetic bubble of like, don't come near me, don't touch me.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And I, she was safe. So as long as everybody's safe, I don't need to touch anybody. But at the end, there was a pose where I deemed it that what she was doing was not safe on her knee, right? And I as a duty of care, I can't allow her to just get by. And I walked up, and she goes, "Oh no, I don't want any cysts. I don't want any cysts. I was injured once." And I said, "Okay." So I just sat down, and I said, "Well, what you're doing right now is a little bit, dodgy on the knee. Can you try to do this?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, we'll pull this way and put this here." And she goes, "Okay, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Do you mind if I move you and put you on the block?" And she goes, "Yeah." So it initially like got the quality of just that connective touch, and that changed the whole relationship.
Yeah.
So from that one experience, it's like, I don't know what the trauma it was. I don't need to know what it was. But, there was something where I think that's a great example. People, we hold on to the thing of one time this happened, and now it's going to happen every time. We're projectors, right? And so if I can get in there and I can help one person alleviate one little bit of, I don't know if it's trauma or just a belief, I like the work of belief patterns, because the patterns of belief will inundate and like a virus spread to everything in your world. So if I can have this person believe that being touched is okay, where else are they going to believe that this is okay outside, the external life? Kind of roundabout answer, but hope that helps.
No, I absolutely love that. And I love the direction you've taken it in, because I'm definitely, I work with a lot of trauma and find how often these beliefs are creating these distortions in their mind that really causes them more harm than good a lot of the time. And I think what I hear, that the power and how you can transform that is with your soft and very compassionate energy that you bring, sitting beside somebody and just saying like, I'm going to be here with you, and everything's about safety. That's what's going to create change. If you run in there trying to touch everybody, that's not going to work, right? But it's the way that you do that. And I think it doesn't have to be about physical touch. When you create that safety through that energy in compassion and I guess you're mirroring that. People are mirroring off you, being able to say, okay, well, this is what I should be doing, and this is what I can take from that. And I love my 1 hour of yoga because I get to be this me that I really enjoy. And then I think a lot of the time what you and some really good other yogis will say, take what you're taking right now and how can you implement that in the rest of your life? And that's what I think is massive with yoga, and how it can be so amazing. I've guys that come and see me that had never had therapy, and I'd only been doing yoga, and they'd gotten to such an amazing point of being present and being able to understand what was going on for them. And then that was the step that they needed to then integrate some of that talk therapy with myself, and being able to understand those things, and it was so powerful. Whew, man, this is good. I can talk about this stuff all day. I will I'll wind down just a tiny little bit. It's a silly question because mine's yoga, but I guess yours might be as well. But what are some of your like non-negotiable things that you do for self-care? Like, how does Troy look after himself? Don't say yoga. Besides yoga.
I would say, honestly, ocean. Like I'm very fortunate to live by the beach. I grew up by the beach, and the ocean. I could talk about that all day, but like surfing, swimming, like even just being near the beach, it's something where the ocean is there's the energetic quality to it. There's the physical, immersion in water. There's acceptance of you are not in control. And if you believe you are, it'll tell you otherwise, and then there's just the cleansing sense of this beautiful salt water that dissolves everything. And it brings me back to life. I think that, okay, non-yoga. That I like doing things. I like having stimulating conversations with people. I like growing. I like learning. I like feeding my brain and feeling like I'm up. My teacher always told me, he's like, you're either growing or you're dying. And it's really true, because none of us get out alive. And I would be the first to admit that I'm not perfect at it. And I have days where it's, I'm the firm believer that the yoga path is not just a steady uphill climb. It's like you start off and you go, oh, this is great. And then you kind of go, okay, I'm kind of plateauing. This is good. But then, and then and then I'm bummed out. And what the hell's going on? And then, okay, I'm back. And it's one of these things. And I think, yeah, just maintaining an open mind through meditation, through teaching. Teaching is actually, it's become a practice for me, which is really cool. For me, teaching and just seeing and interacting with other bodies, it gives me new food for my own practice. And I do my own practice, but it does involve a bit more kind of functional mobility stuff as well. I just want to keep the body moving, drink lots of water. I think I try to maintain a moderation in lifestyle. I don't try to do anything full on. I don't try to ascribe or describe myself. I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that a lot of people try to, define themselves as I'm a this, or I'm follow this, or I'm this. It's like I'll be doing that today. Right now I'm enjoying doing this podcast, but if tomorrow I don't want to do it, I won't do it. And I think the thing is, if I say I'm a podcaster, if I label myself, it's not really useful. So one of my non-negotiables is we're working to not describe myself in definites and infinites. I think that's, maybe there's a yoga concept in there, but that's one thing. And the ocean, man.
Well, yeah,
got to do it.
Yeah, I feel very similarly to a few of those things, especially my moderation component. I think that's something I always have to reflect on in my own life, my own practice. Love that. Love those answers. That's so good. And it's always great to hear how important and how much time people take to have self-care as part of their life. And exactly, a big part of, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you got to be looking after yourself in order to grow. And I think that's awesome. So Troy, you've already mentioned a couple of cool key players in the field of the mind, but what would a go-to book be, something that's been really important and powerful for you along the way?
Look, I really, back when I first started my practice, the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, it's a one-day read.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's a really good overview of how the path can be. It's, I guess the quote of, when someone points their finger at the moon, you look at the moon, not the finger. So I think that's pretty good. Another one-day read, Alchemist. Like, Alchemist is crucial. But I really like, I like the work of Joe Dispenza. I've been, read most of his books. They're all good. He just really talks about rewiring how your brain perceives things. And I think that it's really valuable to take that on and understand that mindset really is everything.
Yeah, that's so good. And Troy, I know you're working at Power Living, but where can people find you? Do you have, Power Living? You're working mostly at the Neutral Bay?
Yeah, no, I teach in Power Living in all the Sydney studios. I'm mainly in Manly Beach. I do a day at Neutral Bay and a day in Bondi Beach as well. Okay. So yeah, that's I'm full-time there. Cool.
And how else can people find you? Do you have like an Instagram or anything like that?
I do. I'm not the most active on social media. As our meeting took a little bit longer to tee up, but yeah, I mean, occasionally I check in on, it's just Troy's Playground on Instagram, Facebook Messenger, sometimes just Troy Abraham, I guess. But yeah, I have an in and out relationship with social media. I'm not very social on it, so I take regular breaks, a month here. But yeah, it's a way. Like I do check the messages periodically, every once a month at least.
That's a very refreshing answer. I'm happy with that. But I will put the links up to Power Living and a few, maybe not all of those books that really good ones, but and I'll put your little Instagram, Troy's Playground, on there as well. I'm a bit sad that we have to end at the end now, Troy. It seems so good. I'm keen to come into the studio. I think next Thursday. Yeah,
cool. I'll be there.
So it'd be good to see you face to face, and Yeah, it's been an honor to have you, and thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to speak about this stuff, and so I hope it helps.
Do you want to find out more about how therapy can help you kick some goals? Go check out findreasontherapy.com.au or the Find Reason Therapy Instagram page.